Next Monday at 8, the diplomatic service has a new recruit, Goldie Hawn, in protocol.
Taking regular exercise, cutting down on fatty foods. These are both common sense ways of reducing cholesterol. There's something else that might help too as part of a low-fat diet. Oat bran. So why not try these? Oat bran flakes with raisins and apple. They're from Kellogg's. And they've got common sense written all over them.
What's with the two bottles? Got to wash your hair twice.
Funny, it's shampoo and conditioner.
I get them both in one bottle with Vidal Sassoon Wash and Go.
Yeah, but I have to use a dandruff shampoo.
So there's a Vidal Sassoon Wash and Go for dandruff. I use it all the time.
Let's have a look. Dandruff shampoo plus conditioner in one. Hey, my hair feels great. And no sign of dandruff.
So you're beautiful. Come on, let's go.
Dandruff Control Vidal Sassoon Wash and Go. Great hair, no dandruff, just wash and go.
ITV, as ever, bringing you the best in new drama.
Mr. Rumpole, are you cross-examining me?
Heaven forfend!
From Rumpole to Glasgow's finest, the return of Taggart.
I'm running this investigation.
I thought I was using my initiative, sir.
Well, use it.
And in a new role, John Thor, having trouble with his women.
Stanley Duke, can I help?
Keeping a list?
Yeah.
I was on it once.
Memories of the past are also stirred by the return of Leslie Titmuss, and he's a long way from paradise.
Why? This place is reserved for nature.
They don't seem like your sort.
And what do you think my sort is exactly?
I'll tell you when I get to know you better.
And making a most welcome return, Arthur Daly.
One owner, a nervous nun, never driven at night. This one over here, never left the country estate of a member of the House of Lords.
A new series of Minder, soon on ITV.
This is Thames Television from London. It's 10 o'clock and time for today's national and international news from the studios of ITN with Alastair Burnet and Trevor McDonald.
The hostages, naive to expect too much too soon. The Israelis say their talks have been fruitful. Kidnapped in this hut, a mother who took her daughter's place. Ulster loyalist gunmen shoot up the Sinn Féin family's bus. And the minister insists it's safe to go in the water. Good evening. The United Nations Secretary-General, Mr. Perez de Cuellar, said today it would be perhaps naive to expect anything to come of the Middle East hostage negotiations in the next few days. He'd met Israeli officials in Geneva. They said the meeting was friendly and fruitful and contact would continue, but they had not even discussed the possibility that Israel might release some of its Arab prisoners. They want word about their own 7 missing servicemen first.
The United Nations Secretary-General, Mr. Perez de Cuellar, was enjoying a rare moment of relaxation this afternoon before his second critical meeting with the Israelis. Earlier, he'd indicated that one possible obstacle to a hostage deal, the question of Arab terrorists jailed in Europe, was not on the agenda. He stressed that the fate of the Hamadi brothers in Germany was an entirely legal matter that had to be resolved within a legal framework.
But that is a different problem. I think I am now referring to the hostages, and the Hamadi brothers are not hostages, as far as I know.
The plane carrying the Israeli delegation touched down early this afternoon. The chief negotiator, Yuri Lubrani, emerged in shirt sleeves, accompanied by a top Tel Aviv lawyer and another foreign ministry official. Arriving at the hotel, he appeared as hopeful as the Secretary-General.
Are you optimistic about the meeting?
I'm always optimistic. I'm always optimistic.
What will you be saying to the Secretary-General?
Oh, I won't say it to you now before I say it to him.
But you're hopeful that a deal might be possible now?
I'm always hopeful.
But behind the scenes, Gian Domenico Pico, the UN Special Envoy, was urging caution. Although unwilling to talk publicly, he told ITN that when it came to the hostage issue, they weren't talking about miracles and the negotiations might take some time. The fate of 7 Israeli servicemen missing in Lebanon proved to be the main subject of this afternoon's talks. And when, after an hour and a half, the Israelis emerged, they made clear the issue was far from resolved.
Israel has 7 prisoners of war unaccounted for. And we have made it abundantly clear that we are expecting a sign of life from these prisoners so that we can go and use them.
Will you, though, first give a sign of goodwill by handing back, say, 10 or 30 or 40?
We have not discussed this at all.
Mr. Perez de Cuellar said he recognized that the Israelis would need some further guarantees, and nothing was done for nothing.
Nothing is done for nothing, you know. I think that the Israelis want assurances, which I will try to obtain from the other side, in order for the Israelis to make an important gesture.
Precisely what assurances will persuade the Israelis to make that gesture appears to be the key to the solution of the hostage crisis. But the Secretary-General's advisers in particular are still stressing that talk of an imminent release of any further Western hostages is premature. The hasty departure tonight of one such advisor, Mr. Pico, suggests a further round of diplomatic shuttling is about to begin. Mr. Perez de Cuellar is leaving Geneva in the morning, possibly for a further but private meeting with the Israelis. Libby Wiener, News at 10, Geneva.
One of the Westerners missing in Lebanon was said today to have been killed soon after he was abducted 6 years ago. He was Alberto Molinari, an Italian national born in Syria. His son said the Italian government made no real effort to get him freed. His killing was said in Beirut today to have been a mistake. Mr. Ahmed Jibril, a Palestinian leader close to Shiite groups in Lebanon, said today that 3 of the 7 missing Israelis were still alive.
They are not holding their breath here. Like us, with the Western hostages, they have been down this road before. What will or won't happen depends on the newspaper you buy, but you can't avoid the cliché cautious optimism or the consensus that they believe their government is doing it the right way in trusting the United Nations to resolve something that has always seemed to them unresolvable. According to one of Israel's most prominent editors, the process is unstoppable.
Too many things have already happened. Too many governments and diplomats are involved. The interests are too deep for this to end without a result.
Given that is, says Shimon Peres, item 1, the missing POWs, is agreed.
First of all, let us know. Where are they? What happened to them? What is their state of health? Do they exist? Don't they exist? That's to open the negotiation.
For the families of the missing men, this is the best and the worst time. Merton Fink left Manchester as a young man and brought his 4-year-old son with him. Yossi, now 26, has been missing 5 years.
We first of all have to ascertain 100% that he's alive. We believe he is, but one way or another, those boys will come home, including my son.
Jonah Baumel has been waiting 9 years for news of his son Yuda, missing since '82.
My wife and I have devoted the past 9 years to gaining information about our son, and we've literally combed the world, and fairly successfully, which is what's kept our hope alive and has enabled us to keep doing what we're doing at the rate that we're doing it.
Tonight, the families suffered further anguish when the Palestinian Ahmed Jibril of the PFLP General Command was screened on Israeli television. Speaking from Damascus, he said that 3 Israelis were alive, 4 were dead. It was dismissed by both the government and the military here as his attempt to bring the Palestinians, so far ignored, into the negotiations. The Israelis are not normally optimistic in their dealings with either the Arabs or the United Nations, but there is hope here now, and nobody pretends otherwise. Despite the political double talk of the past few days, to the Israelis, the equation is quite simple. You help us find our missing men, and there's nothing we will not do to help you find yours. Michael Nicholson, News at 10 in Tel Aviv.
Mr. Edward Tracy, the American hostage in Lebanon freed on Sunday, flew back to the United States tonight from Germany. He'd not been home for 25 years. Mr. Tracy, who's 63, had a sort of victory salute for well-wishers who met him at Hanscom Air Force Base near Boston, though he didn't say anything to them. He was a prisoner for nearly 5 years, and he's to have medical and psychological treatment. President Bush talked today about hostages being used as political puppets.
And we cannot tell, I wish I could tell you, but we cannot tell what lies ahead. But this administration will never rest until every hostage is free to rejoin his loved ones and return to the America that loves them.
Here, robbers have freed the mother-in-law of a post office security van driver after forcing him to take part in a robbery. The gang got away with £350,000 from the van in Mepham in Kent. The woman volunteered herself when armed men turned up at a home in Dartford in Kent and at first tried to take her daughter, who is pregnant.
The hostage, Mrs. Eileen Mann, spent the afternoon describing her ordeal to detectives here at Dartford Police Station. After being forced at gunpoint from her home, she was taken to an isolated wood 6 miles away. She's said to have spent the night with her armed captors at this old gamekeeper's shed hidden among the trees. It's buried deep in the wood, impossible to find without detailed local knowledge. The gunman abandoned her at mid-morning, leaving Mrs. Mann to find her own way to this isolated house on the outskirts of a village.
About 12:15 this morning, I was in the back garden and I heard all the dogs barking and looking out of the gate, so I came out to see what was here, and there was a lady out here wandering around looking quite upset. So I asked her what was the matter, and she said, "Oh, thank God I found someone. I've been held hostage all night at gunpoint."
Mrs. Mann's son-in-law, who works at Dartford sorting office, had been contacted by the gunman at dawn. He was ordered to rendezvous with the gunman and drive his van to the village of Mepham. The money was taken from the vehicle at the end of a quiet country lane. Detectives said his mother-in-law had shown exceptional courage in offering to take the place of her pregnant daughter, who the gunman first wanted as their victim.
I think it's a very brave action of the lady concerned, and a natural reaction, I think, of a mother, rather than allow her daughter, in the condition she was in, to be subjected to any problems.
How she stood up to the kidnapping?
She stood up extremely well. She's obviously shocked. She is subdued, but she's helping us with our inquiries extremely well and giving us all the information and help that she can.
There have been 4 kidnap for ransom incidents over the past few weeks, following similar but not identical patterns. Detectives here say it's impossible to say at the moment whether there's a common link between these copycat crimes. Norman Rees, News at 10 at Dartford Police Station.
An 8-month-old baby and his father, a sub-postmaster, were shot at close range with a sawn-off shotgun during a raid on the sub-post office in East Sussex. They weren't seriously hurt. The masked raiders actually got nothing from the post office in Polegate. 3 men and 2 women were later arrested in Eastbourne.
David Halberg was behind the counter of his sub-post office, cuddling his baby son Jonathan, when 2 masked raiders blasted at them with a shotgun. Police believe the toughened security glass probably saved their lives. The gunmen fled empty-handed, but their getaway car, a red Jaguar with a gun inside, was soon found on an Eastbourne housing estate. A pair of neighbouring terraced homes was surrounded by armed police. After several hours of tense negotiations, one man gave himself up. Later, a second man emerged, hands on head, closely watched by the police marksman.
Move off the road and onto the pavement.
Earlier, another man and 2 women had been arrested in the area. When detectives searched the 2 houses later, they discovered a hand grenade and several rounds of live ammunition. Police said they'd been especially careful to avoid using firearms after the controversial shooting in Shropshire earlier this week. But for Sussex police, this was a swift and successful operation that ended without tragedy. David Halberg and his baby son Jonathan suffered only minor gunshot wounds in the end. Tonight they're said to be comfortable in hospital after a very lucky escape. Jeremy Thompson, News at 10, Eastbourne.
Loyalist gunmen broke an unwritten agreement and fired on a minibus.